Hey guys, it's Abu, and today we're going to be going in depth with the new PortraitStudio update. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know that the Mac version is being worked on right now, and the mobile versions are going to be in production right after we finish that. So within the next 2 weeks, we're hoping to release the Mac version. All the models, all the lighting is going to be tossed into that release, just like the desktop version. However, enhanced lighting and subsurface scattering might not make it in because of limitations. So in the future, we're going to try to find replacements for these. And after we get that done and the mobile version's done, we're going to be working on the model rework. So we've added quite a bit of models to PortraitStudio by now, way over 100 models. So what we're going to focus on now is cleaning them all up, adding textures, details, and what we're going to do is make our current library look as neat and nice as possible before we add any more models. So there's things we can fix with the mannequins. There's more details and textures we can add to the bus. So we're going to work on all of that for you guys in the next couple of months. So now that we've covered all the news and future plans concerning PortraitStudio, let's get right into the guide. First, we're going to talk about the known issues. There's something called the failed to initialize player issue and the failed to load mono. These two things can be fixed by going over to Istebrak's YouTube channel and clicking on videos, and then scrolling down and watching the PortraitStudio 0.4 update video. This video, I'm going to link it down below in the description so you guys can watch this first. So go ahead, it's only 3 minutes. Go through this video to make sure you have a proper installation, and then come back and watch the rest of this video. Now, if you've installed it properly and you're still having issues, what you're going to want to do is go over to Google. In Google, type in download DirectX and click on go to download and run through the setup. Now, if the setup tells you that you already have DirectX, then you don't need to install it. But if it installs, go back to PortraitStudio, try to run it. If you still get the fail to load mono issue, what you're going to do is go to start and type in %appdata%. It's going to bring up the app data folder, and what you're going to want to do is navigate over to local, find PortraitStudio, and the exe is right here. Right click it, go to properties, compatibility, and then of course this is going to be enabled if you watch the video I linked. You're going to want to click on run this program in compatibility mode for Windows 8 or Windows 7 or whatever. Try each one of those and then hit apply and try to run PortraitStudio. For everyone who's contacted me so far with the fail to load mono issue, and it seemed to work for everyone. So if you're still having issues after all of this, go over to istebrak.com, click on store, and then scroll down to the form submission and send me an email so I can try to help you as best I can. Now that we've properly gone through the setup process, we're ready to start PortraitStudio. Keep in mind that if you're running PortraitStudio for the first time, it's going to take a couple seconds to load up the screen. If you have a lower end computer, it might take you minutes. It just depends on what level your GPU is at. So this is what the new PortraitStudio is going to look like. So now we're going to move into navigation and using the camera. So first what we're going to do is click on the model to select it, and then we're going to hit F. F just focuses the camera on the model. And to deselect anything you have selected, just hold Control and hit A. Now there's two camera modes. There's focus camera mode and first person camera mode. Let's start with focus camera mode. So in order to use focus camera mode, you have to have the left Alt button pressed. You use left click and drag to rotate, middle click to pan, and then right click and drag to zoom. And that's all there is for focus camera mode. Just make sure you have left Alt pressed the whole time, and when you're done, just let go of left Alt. The next camera mode is going to be first person camera mode. So in this camera mode, you can't have the left Alt button pressed. And in order to activate this camera mode, you also have to hold right click. So we're going to hold right click. If we move the mouse around, our camera looks in the direction that we move. And if we want to move the camera, we press W to go forward, S to go backward, A to go left, D to go right, Q to go down, and E to go up. So just like in any video game where you can move around in a first-person camera mode, that's exactly how it works. And if you want to switch over to your focus camera mode, all you have to do is let go of the right click and then press down Alt, and you can go back to where you were. This way you can quickly make adjustments without having to press extra buttons to switch camera modes or go into different windows. It's all real quick, real easy, just like that. So if we click on the model, we're going to get a tool pop up. If we press W, we're going to get the move tool, which moves the model around. If we press E, we're going to get the rotation tool, which rotates the model. And if we press R, we get the scale tool, which makes the model bigger or smaller. Now, another way to select the model would be to hold Control and click on the model's title. This way, if you don't have the model on screen, but you want to select it, you can just do it like that. And of course, if you want to select multiple models, let's add a model real quick. If you want to select multiple models, just hold Control, click, and click on the models you want to select. Now, when we rotate these models, they're going to rotate separately. Or if you press Z to change the pivot mode, they rotate together. This also applies to scaling as well. There's also the axis modes. So let's switch into the rotate tool using E. Normally, the rotation tool is going to be in the direction of the model. So if the model is facing up, the rotation tool is going to reflect that. Same with all the other tools. But if we press X, we can switch the axis we're referring to. So now we're in the world position. So the world is always going to stay the same no matter how you change the model. This way you can make better adjustments according to how you want to move the model. So we press X to go to the local axis, and now it lines up to where the model is. Okay, so just a quick note, if I sound a little different, I had some mic problems and I switched over to another microphone. Then my old microphone started working again. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Anyway, so let's talk about the model functions now. We have over here the primary models tab. We also have the secondary models tab and the environment models tab. Primary models consist of stuff like busts, skulls, figures, animals, these are statuettes, and then hands. These are all like the main models. When you spawn a model, you're going to see diffuse, this changes the color of the model. The metallic changes the reflectivity of the model, and roughness changes how smooth the model is. So the less rough it is, the more smooth, which means the more shiny it's going to be. You get those specular highlights. Emission works in conjunction with enhanced lighting. So if you don't have enhanced lighting enabled, anything emissive isn't going to cast light. However, if you make something emissive, let's make this yellow. You bring up the intensity, it's going to turn yellow. And the higher the intensity you have emission on, the more bloom effect you're going to get. So let's change the background to a black color, just so we can see it better. And let's hide the stage for now. So many ways to customize this. But to bring up intensity, it's not going to cast light if enhanced lighting isn't enabled. However, it's going to affect the bloom as well as making the model that color. So that's something to keep in mind. You might be able to get some cool effects if you don't want to use enhanced lighting. But let's turn that to black and let's turn intensity to 0. We have global rim light. So this is just going to be light all around the edges of the model, depending on where you're looking at it from. So if we make this like a nice blue color, you're going to see instantly some of the edges light up. And we're going to bring this down. The lower this is, the more it wraps around the model. So you can use this effect for a lot of things like ambience, or maybe showing an item glowing or a character. But that's what it does. Now subsurface scattering, like we mentioned before, if you have subsurface scattering enabled here, then if you bring this up from black, you're going to get some subsurface scattering on the models. You can change the color, of course, to match the type of subsurface scattering you want. So let's say we have a character that has maybe a dark purple skin. And let's say their blood is green. Okay. Like this color green. So that's what it's going to look like. Alright, so the green, you can see it there. If you bring this down to black, you see the green disappears. Something more realistic would say bring metallic down, bring this up a little bit. Let's give it like a nice skin tone color. And obviously bring this closer to red, like an orange color. We get that more realistic, waxy subsurface scattering there. And we can also go down to ambient light color and put this to black so we don't have any ambient lighting. Now if the subsurface scattering is too intense, just bring it down on the vibrance to your liking. Then you're all set. So those are the options available with the standard models. Now the two busts, the female and the male, default ones, they also have, if you click on their name, features. This feature window allows you to customize what the face looks like. You can get all kinds of settings here. And you can also randomize. You get some funky faces you can work with. So if you want to start over, you just click on default. And there you go. Set everything up as you like, and it does save when you save your project, and it does clone also. So that's pretty great. So that's it for the busts right here. Now what we're going to move into real quick is the mannequins. We're going to click on this, press F to focus on that area. Go to the woman, delete, yes, and then go to the add models button, click on figures, and then select the female mannequin. Now you're going to notice right away there's blue circles and there's going to be this yellow pointy thing. This yellow pointy thing is the root. So if you click on the root, you can move the model as a whole. You can scale her, you can do all that. Now, press F to focus on the root. I'm going to pan up a little bit and then I'm going to zoom in using the Alt. If I want to move different parts of the body, I need to click on the blue joints. So you can twist, you can lean back. And if you want to reset a joint because maybe you messed up too far, let's say we did this and we did this, and it's like some weird hybrid thing and we don't know how to get back, just click on the joint and hit Control Shift D. Now, let's say you really messed up the whole model. And at the current time, we don't have Control Z enabled or undo. Okay, so we don't have undo yet. What do? Well, if you go over to the mannequin title and you click on it, you can click on Reset Pose, and it's going to set your mannequin to default. Now, we learned earlier about selecting models. The same applies to selecting these joints. So if we want to select more than one model or more than one joint, we hold Control. So let's select this joint and let's select this joint. We move them with the rotate tool, they're not going to rotate properly. Now, let's say you want to rotate both arms together, but you want them both to go down. What you have to do is select them both and hit Z, change the pivot mode, and then just rotate them. They rotate down together exactly as you want. Now, the elbows can also be rotated together. Any joint can be rotated together, but these are just like the main things where you want things to be mirrored. And there's going to be more functions coming up as well as default model poses. So let's go over to the environment tab. And here we have something called surfaces. And I'm going to scale it up, make it really big. Now let's say like I feel that's too much detail, too big, it looks too chunky. What we can do is we can scale that down. So we can scale it pretty far. I'm going to scale it like right about here so it looks pretty good. What we can do is change the roughness. which changes how shiny the ground is going to be. And then what we can also do is change it to detail only. Then we're going to make this a nice bluish color. From here, start setting up our model. There's also other environments you can use. You can add trees, you can add all kinds of things. So I'm going to let you guys build your own scene, and then I'm going to come back once I have everything all set up. And before I go, if you want to turn off these joints, you can always do that by going over to the mannequin, clicking on the title, and hitting hide joints. And to enable them, you can just click on show joints. So yeah, let's work on something real quick, and then I'll come back and explain to you guys what I did. I just want you guys to explore the model portion, and then we're going to explore the lighting tab over here. So don't really mess with your lighting unless you really want to. When we come back, I'm going to explain it all for you guys. Okay guys, so here's the scene I made. What we're going to do is kind of explore it here. So let's turn on the camera light. This light just emits light directly from the camera view, just like any other 3D program. As you can see back here, I did use a flying fox bat skull. You can toggle the jawbone if you just wanted the top, and then you could put it on a person, which would actually be pretty cool, but I just went with the jawbone so it could look like some kind of really big monster behind her. I use emissive objects for the eyes with bloom up, and for example, I was talking about emissive lighting earlier. If I turn off the camera light and we have our lighting here, I could go into the object lights over here under secondary models. And if I enable enhanced lighting, you're going to see how the emissive objects actually cast light and shadows on objects. Enhanced lighting is enabled, which is pretty cool. You can do the same thing with the sword. Let's say you want to have the sword be glowing. I picked a yellow there, maybe make it a little more orange, match everything. Increase the emission intensity. So the stronger you make it, the more light it's going to cast, the more it's going to be affected by a bloom. So that's kind of a cool effect there. You have this monster here. She doesn't know he's there. Kind of just looking. So it's a nice effect. We can actually even just change the color of the sword to match whatever kind of mood or story we're going with. This looks pretty cool right here. I like that a lot. But I'm going to disable the emission. Disable enhanced lighting because I don't need it for this scene. And I just kind of wanted to show you guys what you could do without enhanced lighting. I know enhanced lighting looks really good, but without it you can still do a lot of really awesome stuff. So the first thing we have here is the directional light, and this is just the standard light that we have here. So if you increase the strength, get the directional light. If you hold the number 1 and move your mouse, it's going to rotate the directional light accordingly. And this little arrow here updates you and lets you know where the directional light is actually pointing. So even if you rotate the camera, it'll stay accurate. Now with the directional light, we have shadow softness, just like the other lights. We can make those shadows, cast shadows soft. Right here you can see it. Hard shadows, soft shadows. And this is distance based. So in like real life, the base of an object that's casting a shadow is sharp, while the other part that's farther away from the base is soft. So that's what happens here. If I enable enhanced lighting, we get a soft light feature under the directional light, which is just light that doesn't cast hard shadows. So we can have that. That's what it's going to look like there. Kind of more realistic. It's something you'd use for like a render, but you can use it here, and you can use it in conjunction with the regular directional strength to get some cast hard shadows there as well. So let's disable this again. Let's turn off the directional light. Right here we have the point light. So let's click on the indicator, show where it is. That's a little big, so we can make the indicator smaller by scaling it. Now I'm going to focus on it. You can focus on a light just like you would an object or a model. So we focus on it right there. Now I can change the color just like any other light. Let's say you want her hand to grow like a green. That would actually be cool. You can do that. This also has softness, so my range is very short. If I increase my range, the distance that the light goes increases by a lot. You can see there's cast shadows here, and there's sharp shadows. If I bring shadow softness up, it's going to soften those shadows, even the one back there. So I'm going to decrease the range again, just enough to illuminate the hand. And here we have volumetric lighting. So under volumetric lighting, I'm going to disable bloom for now. And now we have the volumetric lighting. If we go ahead, turn it off, you're not going to see that glow. Let's turn it on. Let's increase the range. And let's decrease the scatter and the thickness as well. Magnitude should also be down. You can see there's a little sphere there of light. So that's what it's going to look like if we decrease the thickness, decrease the magnitude. We have just the light as it stands by itself. Bring the scatter down, bring the shadows down. Now you just have kind of like a fog light that doesn't cast very heavy shadows at all, which you can use for a lot of things. So if we go over here to the spotlight, we can actually change the shape of the light. So right now you see like a cone of light that comes down and it's kind of just touching the floor a little bit. If I go ahead and change the shape, I can get different effects. So there's a circle, the radius light in a circle with a line through it, flashlight style, so you have a stronger beam of light in the middle, softer outwards, lines. So if you want to do a scene where a character is getting scanned by a machine or a robot or anything like that. We also have line 2 for like blinds, if there's a character in an apartment or behind a window. Do that as well. And there's tons of different options here. Ring, emits light in a ring. Ring 2 is like blinds, except circular. Have window as well. Kind of have like a regular window setting. So let's go back to the light we were using, which is odd. Turn it a little bit while we had it. Come back where we want it here. So now another thing that the spotlight has is the angle. So this can increase the width of the spotlight, but keep in mind this also affects shadows. So this will thin out shadows. Bring down the softness, we see shadow line goes all the way out here. We bring down the angle, kind of changes. If you increase shadow softness, you can kind of tell this more. As you see, the wider the angle of the light, the softer and the more the shadow recedes. To do that, you want to decrease this value to kind of compensate if you want to get a stronger shadow. Let's bring that angle down again like it was before. And those are the point lights, spotlights, and the directional lights. Now if you lose a point light and you want to set it back to default, position, all you have to do is click on this icon and it's going to put it right back to where it started. In the next tab, we have indirect lighting. Here you can set the background. You can either choose color, so we can change the color of the background here, or you can choose an HDR. This is the default one, where if you move the directional light, it changes according to the angle, just like daytime. So sunset, you get like a noon, and you can kind of mess around with that. You can also change the HDR. So let's say we pick Riverwalk. We're in a forest now. You can use this for a backdrop too. If you use the rotation slider, you can change the rotation of the HDR. Pretty cool. And let's scroll down here. We have ambient lighting. We have color mode and HDR mode. So if you have HDR mode enabled, the ambient light is going to be based off the HDR. If you have color mode enabled, it's going to be based off the color you choose. It just applies a flat color to all objects. Now we have ambient reflectivity. If we go over here and change it to color mode, sorry, to HDR mode, it's also based off the HDR we have. So this is for reflectivity. If you have an object that's really reflective, let's change the model Mannequin and bring the roughness down and the metallic up. So as you can see now, she's reflecting her environment very strongly. So if we go over the HDR, let's set it to sunset. See that she reflects background. And if we change the background to HDR, we can see what kind of sky she's reflecting there. So we don't want her that shiny. We're going to turn this down, turn this up, change the background back to color, and we're going to disable ambient light. And now go over to ambient reflectivity. Let's decrease the strength on that. So the next thing we have is fog. We enable fog. It's going to produce a fog that, depending on distance, it'll show. So what you can do here is set the fog color to be color of the backdrop. That's usually what looks the best in my opinion, but it really depends on what effect you're going for. Kind of increase the thickness so we don't have to go as far to get a dark colored fog. Make it pure black. So the farther we go out, the darker it's going to get. Let's say we want to hide the guy in the back a little more. Do that as well. Even more hidden now. So disable the fog and we get all of that. The fog does interfere with the volumetric lighting because it's extra fog in the environment that's blocking that light. So after fog, we have color grading. I'm going to turn this off, and this is what PortraitStudio looks like by default. They're the default colors. Now, if we apply color grading, this contains a filter. Nice list of filters here. It also contains exposure and contrast. So depending on what kind of mood you're going for, you can really change it up just by using a little bit of color grading. And again, we have bloom, which causes that glow from objects that are emissive or bright objects, even lights. So that's really nice to have. You can change tolerance. Tolerance just means how bright a light needs to be or an object needs to be in order to be affected by bloom. Bloom size is the radius of the actual effect. And then the strength, of course, is going to be how strong the effect is. I like a light bloom that's wide, a foggy type of bloom. Then here we have depth of field. Depth of field has a marker, which you can move around. You let go, it's going to focus the camera on that marker. So if we focus it right here on the face, what we're going to see is that everything else gets blurred out. We can disable the marker. We can also change the focal length to adjust the blur and adjust the area and distance of the blur. You can also set the blur to high or low. If we put it on high, you can see it's even more blurry. Low is just a little bit. That's everything we have here in the lighting panel and the indirect lighting panel. Lots of effects here to play with, lots of lights to play around with. And next we're going to dive into the enhanced lighting window. So to go over enhanced lighting, I've set up a little window here. What I'm going to do is go through the settings first. So let's click this little drop down arrow next to enhanced lighting, and you can change the resolution to low or high. You can change the trace steps, which just means the clarity of the final image. We have the bounce steps, which is the clarity of the bounce lighting. We have Gaussian filter, which smooths out shadows and light areas, as well as reflections. Occlusion levels just determines how dark everything is going to be, those nooks and crannies. Filter resolution is going to cut the resolution in half, or you can have a full resolution. And then the refresh rate is real time, slow, which is every half second, or manual. If you're on manual, in order to update your enhanced lighting, you have to hold tab. So you need to hold tab after you do your changes in order to keep enhanced lighting updated. This is the best way to save in performance, as well as cutting filter resolution to half, cutting the resolution of the enhanced lighting to low. Enhanced lighting also has skylight, so let's enable that now. And on the skylight, I'm going to turn off the direction light first. And under skylight, we're going to enable that. So what you have here is just a complete light from the top, nice and soft. And enhanced lighting doesn't have any hard shadows, they're all soft shadows, more realistic shadows. If we mess with occlusion, we get darker shadows. If we mess with bounce exposure, we get more bounce light, a lot brighter bounce light. So depending on what kind of mood you're going for and what setup you want to study, you can change that. And now with reflections, you can disable reflections entirely under enhanced lighting, or you can keep them enabled. And with this, you can either make reflections really bright or really dark, as well as change the resolution of your reflection. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep reflections about right here, occlusion a little bit higher, and then what I'm going to do over here under the directional light is enable that. And now we have something called soft light. If I disable enhanced lighting, soft light is gone. So if I enable it, it comes back. It's only an enhanced lighting feature. So soft light is like the skylight, however, it's linked to your directional light. So let's decrease the directional light strength, and let's use simply just the soft light. Before we do anything else, let's go over to the ambient light and decrease that to black so that we don't get any ambient light interfering with our scene here. I'm also going to turn up the bounce exposure and the occlusion down a little bit here. Okay, so now we have the directional soft light enabled. And when we rotate our directional light, we're going to see soft shadows being cast depending on where the light is pointing. Now, of course, you can use this alongside the regular directional strength. And this will give you hard shadows as well as soft shadows, which is pretty cool. This is for studying more realistic lighting scenarios and for setting up nice, cool references for full-on illustrations. Now what we can do is go over to the models panel and let's go to this guy right here, Shepherd Cupid. Make him a little shinier. Let's change this color to red. So as we can see here, that red is bouncing off of him and going onto the side of the face of this bust right here. So depending on how the light, what angle the light is on, you're going to get different kinds of bounce lighting. So I'm going to disable the soft light entirely. Simply just work with the directional hard light. Now I'm going to go to the dragon. I'm going to make the dragon a blue color. You can see that blue color bouncing right off the floor where it's hit. onto the skull. And then I'm going to go to the girl and make her an orange color. Those colors bouncing around there as well, off the ground. And let's go to the hand and make the hand, let's say like a purple color. There we go. So as you can see, we have nice bounce light bouncing everywhere. Make things a little more shiny or matte, depends on what we want to go for. So let's make her shiny as well. And with the skull matte, keep him the same as well. And of course, one thing we can do is enable the object lights. So that's it. Those are the basics of enhanced lighting, and that was how to use PortraitStudio 0.5.0. I hope you guys enjoyed the new features, and I hope you guys are looking forward to what's coming up next, model reworks and release. If you have any suggestions, any comments, any issues, go to istebrak.com/store. At the bottom of the page, fill out a form. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you guys for your support, and I hope to see you again. Bye.